But that's what all of them do, right? I mean, we could talk about Roblox, right? Roblox has what, like 150 million daily active users, and you're like, wow, that's a good job, Roblox. It's so many people, and then they go, well, we're trying to get to 1 billion active users per day.
Yeah, because
Like,
you're still not making any money.
yeah, well, that's a whole nother conversation, but it's true. They're not profitable, and so it's like I guess we have to like populate Mars too, and then they also have to start playing Roblox
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
through laser connection or something between planets. Like, I mean, it's just
We
I
need,
don't
yeah, we need
know.
our moon expansion Roblox colony ASAP.
Is that the aspiration of the audience or of the shareholders?
Yeah,
You know, like do people care? Oh, I got here
we've
early.
entered, we're like out of the transition from like late stage capitalism to just stupid stage capitalism. Welcome to Unboxing, Play and Profit for the Gaming Curious. I'm Lane Nooney.
And I'm Joost van Breunen.
And we're here digging deep on why games matter in today's economy. On the docket today, Friday, April 17th, Disney and Epic Games are teaming up to make an extraction shooter. Will this get young men back into gaming, or will Mickey Mouse with an M16 prove too much to handle? Plus, game dev legends Brenda and John Romero say it's worse than the 1983 video game crash out there. Does the comparison hold up? All that and more with your two very springtime co-hosts. But first, we've got some catching up to do. Musical interlude.
Dancing
Yost.
provided by. Hey,
Hey,
what's
happy
cooking?
spring. Actually, happy
It is a
summer.
happy spring.
It's like 86 degrees
Yeah,
outside.
spring was Tuesday. And you missed
Yeah,
it.
we got
It was
about
all the.
5 days of spring this
Mhm.
season.
It's fantastic.
How are you doing?
We don't
It's
have
been
time for spring.
we had to take off last week because you were in. It was
The Netherlands.
Dutch Week of Visibility, and so,
I get that reference. It's true. It's true. I had lots of cheese. So they have this thing called krentenbollen, which is like these little like soft rolls with like raisins and a bunch of other like sort of flavors and spices. And as a kid, you grew up them. They're sort of sweet, you know. It's sort of like the closest is like what is that bagel called? Cinnamon raisin bagel. It's sort of the same effect, but they're soft and squishy. I think I had like 12 of those. And so I come back and it's just like, oh, so full of raisins and regret. So I had a good time. I spent time with my brother, obviously, and his kids. Their birthdays sort of fall around this time. And then the big kid and I, jet lagged as we were, went to see the new Mario movie.
I heard. How was it? Did it
It
live up
was,
to the Guardian's 1-star review?
listen, I think brain rot is now a dominant aesthetic, and Nintendo is capturing it. You know, it's quite literally like there's no narrative in these movies. There's no character development. Everything is one dimensional, and it's all right. You kind of like, sure, let's do this. Let's just sit here. I had a pound of candy. I was nauseous before the thing started, and then you have to put on the 3D goggles, so you're sitting there going like, yo, it's
Mm.
you know the closest to
Is it?
crack for mainstream audiences without it being crack. I had a good time.
Did it feel worse than the first one, or
The
like
novelty had
different
worn
in
off
any
a little
meaningful
bit.
way? What?
The novelty had worn off. Like the first Mario movie is like, whoa, we're doing this now. This one is like, yeah, we've been doing this. This is cool. Like let's. But it's a if I'm really aggressively skeptical, I'd say it was all of the bits and pieces that ended up on the cutting floor last time. It's like, oh, we should do this thing or should do the other thing. Oh, you know what we could do is this thing with the castle and Bowser. Sort of they went through some of the things that they didn't put in last time, and it was much more high-fiving to the existing audience and the fan base, and like, oh, this reference and that reference, and sort of all these like little Easter eggs everywhere. It was good. I had a
Oof.
great time. It's just like, you're
Wow.
not there for like the weight of the culture behind it. It has
It's
nothing to
it's
do with it.
doing well, 629 million worldwide.
Yeah, so it's
Jesus.
halfway to like the previous one, which is for $110 million budget. It's a great outcome, you know. So we're going to be seeing these till the end of days, I'm sure. The plot's very thin. Like it's sort of like none of the
Okay, so it's sort of
obstacles to overcome are hard.
it's not doing as well as the first one, but it's still a hit,
Yeah,
quote unquote. Yeah.
the
And
first one did
given that
1.4 billion.
the whole thing is just, 3D animated, you don't have to, you know. All right. Well, okay.
I know this
Great.
is for you. This is what makes you excited. It's like listen, like
A journalist contacted me, I think a few weeks, like a week or two before it came out, to ask me to comment on like Pauline and the representation, the lack of female representation in the Mario movie, and I was like, girl, I don't even know who Pauline is. I can't even. Right? She's one of the two ladies.
Rosalina?
Rosalina. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Oh,
Oh
I'm
Jesus.
thinking of Pauline is the name for the. I think Pauline is the name for the character in Donkey Kong who you're supposed to save. I think I just had like a
Mm.
real elder brain moment.
Oh, that's
Um,
that's that's understandable. But so there's a lack of female representation. It's those are the two main characters. I
I
don't
can't
want to.
remember
I
what
mean,
they said, but like they don't do anything maybe, or I don't know. But like they were like, "Can you comment on this?" And I said, "I don't even know who this person is. I don't know her." In the words of Mariah Carey, I don't. I do not pay enough attention to the Mario IP ecosystem to
the
know what's
Mario
going on.
canon.
Yeah,
Well, okay, I'll give you the 20-second
I
version.
know that Birdo is trans, and that's all I know. Like,
Stay, yeah, you stay close to what you know. I suppose I, of course, was very disappointed to see Mario and Luigi have a sort of a backseat. Yeah, why aren't they here? No, it's still, they wrote it, I think, with a lot of different agendas in mind, and and as a result, it's kind of about nothing in particular.
huh?
So
It like doesn't it does it have like a moral arc or
no,
no?
no, I mean, it's complete. I mean, it's as close
We
to
want
brain
to
rot
how many?
aesthetic
So
as
we're
you
gonna
get.
give it out of how many 0 to 5 game cubes. How many game cubes do we give this movie review?
I'll give it a 4, 4.5.
You're gonna give it 4.5 game. You're gonna give it an almost perfect score.
Mm-hmm. Listen, like I'm
What's
onto some
happening?
I'm onto this new cultural thing, and I haven't quite
The new
formulated it
cultural
yet.
thing being the
Like
the
like
destruction of meaning in contemporary content. Okay.
postmodernism. Take a walk. Like you ain't seen nothing yet. It's like it's the
Take
self-referential
that, Greta
singularity of this.
Jameson.
Yeah, like listen, like oh, you want to make some fancy hotel using some ideas? Like that's over now. It's a I get emails from the Atari hotel chain, by the way. But so irrelevant here. But the nature of the movie is just like it's just pure high octane entertainment. There's no substance, and I think that speaks very directly to the cultural moment we're in. Because good lord, everything else feels like it weighs a ton. So I think it's perfectly suitable. I think it's right on time. I think it taps into all this.
All
It's
right,
like
four and
The
a half.
Barbie movie too.
You think the Barbie movie had no moral arc?
No, it did have a moral arc. It did say that. Jesus. And that is very distinct. I'm saying is like there's a glossy, plasticky nature, sort of a particular sort of style of storytelling, and like the cadence and the sort of dialect of these things. And it's not a serious movie. It's not sitting you down and like looking you right in the eye. It's sort of
I'm
like,
not gonna listen to you put the Barbie film in the same category as this.
oh, okay,
You know,
okay,
first of all, like I do
okay,
not think these are
okay. Well, you have
comparable
thoughts about the Barbie film?
texts. Yeah, we're gonna
Um,
save them for later, okay?
oh,
Like this is
let's do
a
it. Let's do
video.
a game. Let's do a film episode. But anyways, I had a good time. That's
So
the main thing. The 3D
should we
version
get
was great.
the 3D version was great.
Mhm.
It feels more like this is the coming home to roost of a kind of YouTube and Twitch culture, right? Which is like right? That this is the logical extension of like the Spider-Man and Frozen Elsa universe, the kind of Mr. Beastification of, right? It's all spectacle. There's no actual, right,
Frozen
content.
is Frozen is not all spectacle. You have to take that
No,
back.
I'd say I so Spider-Man and Frozen Elsa is a genre of YouTube video that was popular. They got popularized for like little kids, like
Mm.
maybe about like 8 years ago, where it was
Oh.
just these kind of almost like silent film style, very disturbing YouTube videos of adults dressed as Spider-Man and Frozen Elsa and acting these weird kind of like pantomime worlds where it was like, what if we ate 100 Kinder eggs in a toilet? What if Elsa gave birth to 5 Spider-Man babies? Like what if
Oh.
Elsa lost all her teeth? Just like a real kind of like mirror world, like
Unlike
and it was
unsubscribe.
all kind
Thanks.
of shot in like in the same set that you've seen porn get shot in, like,
Oh.
and they could,
Oh.
because the
Good.
IP, what was getting like algorithmatized was the Spider-Man and Frozen Elsa IP. They did numbers, right? So it was all about creating this kind of like toothless content that babies would watch and you could therefore throw advertising against and make money on. And it was like a you should it's like a genre of um it's a the skibbity toiletification of content, right? Like you might be too old to have this conversation with me, Yost.
No, listen.
I need
I
I
am
need to share some critical
furiously
takes with you.
Google. I that went a totally different direction. I thought,
That
but
I was
that's
out here
fantastic.
talking shit about Frozen. I've never seen
Well,
Frozen, but
no, exactly. Like it's Frozen. Every time, like this is how white men like me. That's when we cry. We watch those movies, so it's very near and dear to us. That's the only channel we have. So let me just add that to this sandwich.
good lord. Can we talk about the games now? Well,
Yeah, that's
speaking
like
of things that make me cry.
good. Way to segue. Go on, go on.
This, our intern fished this up. A whole raft of just disappointing bummer headlines. Next gen Xbox swag has already begun circulating with influencers. That was apparently a real bust. But this story, I could not stop reading this story about Epic is making a Disney extraction shooter in the battle to win back young men.
Hmm.
Like,
The battle. It's a battle out there. It's hard out there, man. It's tough out there for billion-dollar
Epic
companies.
Games is reportedly developing a Disney backed extraction shooter set to launch in November, marking the first
Hmm.
release of Disney's $1.5 billion investment in the company. While the project leverages Disney IP and Epic's Fortnite ecosystem, it enters obviously a crowded and competitive genre. This is like, speaking of like concepts that have no content, right? How much have you? So I had to do some self education, right? How much have you followed the extraction shooter genre development as a? And do you know what we're talking about?
I know what we're talking about. I like to see the genealogy of these things. So all the way to like DayZ or H1Z1. Then you see Escape from Tarkov, sort of like
Mhm.
the less polished, the more serious, the more realistic kind of
Yeah,
experiences, and then they gradually become more fun, like Arc Raiders, right? It's like, hey, let's create some changes here. The reason I find that interesting is because lots of people play them, of course, and it's an innovative way to look at things. At the same time, you see a lot of people chasing this puck and never quite catching up to it. Never mind getting in front of it somehow, right? So
yeah.
it's
The puck being the genre kind of happens, right, and then everyone wants to make their version. Yeah, I mean we've seen this several times just in the past 10 years. Everyone needs a hero shooter. Everyone needs a battle royale. Now we're all going to get an extraction shooter, which is actually a more narrow subgenre, right? Like it's many people play them, but it's not a broad genre, right? It's like even Arc Raiders, which you said is like fun is still gritty, highly tactical, like intense, right? Like the kind of the affect that these games chase through survival and intensity, right? And more kind of not quite a slower pace, but a kind of more like, yeah, I guess tactical pace, right? Is very specific, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
that is not that does not necessarily produce like casual fun, right? In the way that something like the battle royale has a lot of expansiveness for either being you could either play it at a very hardcore level or you can just kind of like romp around, and that
Hmm.
is like part of the entertainment factor, right? And so I'm reading this and I'm like, what does the aesthetic of a game like this look like, right? Because
Hmm.
every tactical shooter is just, SWAT teamified to the gills.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
is this what's the IP? Is this Goofy with a gun? Is this
Hmm.
is this using the Marvel universe? Is this using the Star Wars universe? The idea that Disney is an IP that's going to get young men into gaming is like also very funny to
Hmm.
me. And
Yeah,
yeah, there's already like a dozen games in this space, right?
yes. Well, so all of it makes sense if you're in like a sort of strategic boardroom, right? It's like, oh, what should we do? Well, what's the new thing, right? And you say, well, let's have our own extraction here. We see that this is popular. Can we build one? Sure. Can we make it better by adding existing IP? Sure, we can do that. Interestingly, I came across some research recently, and it talks about sort of fads and fashion trends in gaming genres. And so the punchline of all of that was that fashion trends last about 4 years, and so the extraction shooters are kind of in that, right? So yeah, it's the great new thing for shooter games, and it has a lot of cool mechanics, and it's sort of right now having this moment. Can you put something in the market now that's going to dramatically change it or capture market share? Or is it like Concord, for instance, more likely that you're going to end up somewhere way past its moment, way past its prime? And so now you
Yeah,
come
like
out with
like
your
people
Disney
playing
IP.
Tarkov are not going to convert to like what was so genius about Epic and Fortnite, right? Was they managed to take something that was kind of right before it kind of blew up, right? There was like the hardcore scene that had been doing the battle royale for a little while, but like once it really got, they managed to kind of put out Fortnite almost right at the same minute that that
Hmm.
genre really exploded in like they weren't trying to they were following a trend, but the trend was still quite kind of emergent at that time.
Hmm. Hmm.
In a certain sense, it hadn't trended, and then they were able to innovate on it in such an original way with the building mechanics, and they had kind of nothing to lose. Whereas Epic is now
Hmm.
in a position where it has a lot to lose, right? Epic
Hmm.
built an empire around Fortnite that, like all empires, is not eternal,
Hmm.
and but because executives are buffoons, they act like it is, and then it is a crisis when they discover it's not, and then they flound around to figuring out how to playing catch up, right?
Hmm.
Rather than letting kind of maybe the creativity of their actual employee base kind of like find their next version of the thing, right? That was what
Hmm.
was so
Hmm.
cool about Fortnite, was that it didn't feel like it was trying to be anything, right? Or like it wasn't trying too hard. All of the IP came after. All of the,
Hmm.
like, at its core, it was fun. And then we
Hmm.
could spackle all this other shit onto it.
Hmm.
Something cooked by Disney from the start. Ugh. Like, what is this even? Like, this is gonna.
Yeah, I'm never like
Oh, time for
easily
my
convinced.
Jafar extraction shooter. Like, what are we even doing,
I
people?
would play that. I would play that. It's the
If they can
there's
make it fun and expand the genre, there's something interesting there, but it's almost counterintuitive to what the extraction shooter is going to be. And the
Mhm.
hardcores will probably hate it, would be my guess. And it's still not Roblox, man. Like
Look, listen, they're betting on a trend whose lifespan is shorter than its own production cycle, right? It's just not. It's like you either lead or you don't. And if you don't, then you're competing over scraps. And will IP make a difference? Kinda, sure. Is it going to be like this amazing thing? Not really. Nobody's kind of really care. It's like you said, like the diehards are already settled in their decisions. I think everybody knows where the innovation comes from. This is a fundamental problem in the industry. It's not just Disney and Epic, it's Sony too. Like, yes, they're doing really well with Arc Raiders, but they never saw that coming because if they
Yeah,
had, they would have totally done that differently because
they would have fucked it up probably.
they would have done it like they did Concord, spend 400 million and try to come up with this thing. So in many ways, I feel like this is precisely why large companies are, I know that people at large companies want to be innovative and they see all the toys and like, we should totally do a thing. And somewhere along the line, like the
Like,
politics
we're so
prevent
big,
that.
if we make the toy, we run it, all of it, and it just feels like a real misunderstanding of how this ecosystem works.
I'm my own bias in that is I'm an entrepreneur. So like, I don't believe 20 years in the innovative capacity of large corporations. It just don't, you need a small agile group. Hearthstone was like 12, 20 people, something like that. All of these moments come from like just this small group of brilliance. All of Supercell's innovation comes from small clumps of people building something together, held accountable, held to standards, being professionals, being senior and seasoned enough to know, how to conduct themselves. But it's in many ways like,
AIDS
you know,
pills.
what?
Sorry. I was starting a YouTube with the audio on. Please go.
Oh, I was like, oh, it's God? Is that,
I was trying to
that
look
you?
at this Project Helix swag that I was reading another story about.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the punchline of all this is to say like large companies don't innovate like that. I don't think that that's what we should expect. So be like a Me Too title. Like we want to be here also, but they're not going to be innovative or so exciting that we can't live without it. And it's going to be kind of yeah fine. Feel like it's there's an increasing amount. Like, I think you can leverage IP differently. I would love to see them leverage IP for some really innovative stuff, but this is all very railed and controlled. So I wish them all the best, but
I
I don't think
can't.
it's
I
going to
mean,
be.
I can't wait. I can't wait to come back to this. In, you know, over the months. Like, I can't wait for these screenshots to get dropped. I can't wait for like everyone to hate this. I'm just
Mhm. I
anticipation.
mean, so then so let's add a little spice because then Disney, of course, is not entirely made up of people that are idiotic or buffoons, right? It's people are smart, and so then another way to look at it is like, okay, well, if it's not about them capitalizing on the extraction shooter trend, like, then what are they doing? And what I think they're doing is like they don't really care about the manifestation of the gameplay. They care about being active in the space where their audience hangs out. They just want to be part of the conversation, maintain. So in business terms, it's a user acquisition tool. It's a distribution channel for them. They just want to be in the mix. And if
It's a
we're
pretty
playing tic
pricey
tac toe,
distribution channel, but I
yeah, but
guess
it's that's
if
that's what
if
it
you're
costs to
Disney,
be
whatever
Disney.
you piss 1.5 bill, like
Yeah, that's
not a big
those are the
deal.
stakes. That's like the biggest mobile games. That's what they spend on mobile marketing with Apple. It's a crazy budget. So I think it's relatively speaking actually not that big of a deal. It's what they probably spend on napkins at all of their theme parks and cruise ships annually. So while these numbers seem big, and it's like I think we can get stuck in sort of the specifics. That they're just trying to maintain cultural relevance for generations to come, and they'll get a
Yeah,
couple of hits along the way.
it's about it's about 1.5% of their revenue from last year.
Yeah, well, okay. That's what you pay on parking tickets for your motorcycle now. I know you,
I
rogue
I haven't
rider.
gotten a parking ticket on my motorcycle in a long time.
Yeah, yeah, sure. All right. So what's
So
the other
what
thing?
about the other
What's up with
story
Helix?
was the Project Helix thing is that so Xbox, there was, I guess, a premature reveal of their next generation system, Project Helix, and they decided to. It's been announced with a few details. Dev kit's not expected until 2027, and then they sent but nonetheless they sent branded merchandise to influencers on
Ooh.
this unreleased product. So
Did you
I
get
just
any?
watched. I
That means that
That's
you're
right,
not an
important
influencer.
important game industry influencer. I just watched this very sad YouTube video of this guy who like opened a box, and it was just like a shirt that said
Oh,
Project Helix
stickers.
on it and a hat that said Project Helix, and I was like, this fucking is dumb. Like this is what I mean. I think what are we doing is a good question. I don't, like everyone's kind of like this doesn't build excitement. This doesn't build hype. Xbox is a bit backed in a corner, I guess, because the Game Pass and expansion has not paid off in the to the aspirational level to which they hoped
Hmm.
it would. Is that correct?
Hmm. Yeah, I think that they're trying to make a clean cut with last era of management and claim this as the new thing. It's
I mean, if they had listened to this podcast 2.5 years ago, we told them this wasn't gonna work.
what did we
What do we
say?
know?
What did we say?
I mean, I'm sure I talked some shit about what a dumb idea this was. You know,
Helix?
no, not Helix, the Game Pass, right? That like,
Oh,
oh,
the Game Pass.
we're gonna reinvent how Xbox makes money
I'm a
through
fan.
through the
I'm so
subscription
sorry.
model.
I'm so sorry.
But it's not
People
like
love
they
to hate.
always think they're gonna. It's not that the thing doesn't work. It's like they have these unrealistic ideas about territory conquest that are obviously like not going to be able to be held up through these models, right?
Mm,
You're not going to
mm.
capture every American to play to like pay for an Xbox subscription. Like, what are you thinking? You know?
Well, yeah, well, I don't think that that's what they're thinking, but you're right that there's a North Star or sort of an ambition here that's like, whoa, all right, let's
Like
find
you've
out.
hit the ceiling on this shit. You know? We're all
Hmm.
kind of thinking about this the wrong way.
But that's
Um,
what all of them do, right? I mean, we could talk about Roblox, right? Roblox has what, like 150 million daily active users, and you're like, wow, that's a good job, Roblox. That's so many people, and then they go, well, we're trying to get to 1 billion active users per day.
yeah, because
Like,
you're still not making any money. Like,
yeah, well, that's a whole nother conversation, but it's true. They're not profitable. And so it's like, I guess we have to like populate Mars too, and then they also have to start playing Roblox
yeah, yeah, exactly.
through laser connection or something between planets. Like, I mean, it's just,
we
I
need,
don't
yeah, we need
know.
our moon expansion Roblox colony ASAP.
And
Um,
is that the aspiration of the audience or of the shareholders?
yeah,
You know, like, do people care? Oh, I
like
got here
we've
early.
entered, we're like out of the transition from like late stage capitalism to just stupid stage capitalism. And actually, I
Is that
think this might
you
have something
discovered a new stage?
discovered a new stage, which is the dumbest stage of late capitalism. But this actually might relate to the other story we were going to talk about, which was so John and Brenda Romero were
Ooh,
recently they were where were they? They were being interviewed.
John
They were
and Brenda.
speaking to GameIndustry.biz ahead of Game Republic's Dark and Doomy event in Wakefield, reflecting on the hardships they've faced over the past year. And Brenda said, I feel like the industry's in a really horrible place. I mean, we were there in the 80s for the crash, and this is definitely crashier. There are so few people that have not been affected, or their partners affected, or they're worried about being affected. It's a really difficult time right now.
All right. Well, I mean, what are your thoughts when you hear Brenda say that as a historian? Let's start with the historian's perspective.
So, like, I think that this is not a you can't make an apples to apples comparison because it's not a crash in the same right? And I think this is about the difference between in the 80s we were at the beginning of late stage capitalism. Now we are in stupid stage capitalism. I need to write a book on this. That I suddenly realized. This is my Cory Doctorow moment, right? This is my enshittification.
Don't say it before you say it. It's like
It's,
don't make us self-aware about it. Just say it.
um, so right, it's not a crash in the same sense. It's
Hmm.
more that like Like she is absolutely correct that it is like a dire time in the industry, and yet somehow the industry is still making billions and billions of dollars. It's the question of like, where is it making it, right? Where is all of that production going? And like it's so kind of like top heavy, right? It's so highly
Mm,
concentrated that there's no like the I mean the first historical point I have, with all respect, is that John and Brenda Romero were not part of the 1983 video game crash. They were around for, or like in terms of their industry participation, they
mhm,
were impacted by a thing that happened the following year, which was the 1984 software shakeout. So if you want me to get really pedantic, this is like that nobody talks about. The 83 video game crash was about the console industry. And that had a fundamentally different set of problems because that was venture capital backed, right? Like Atari was owned by Warner. It was bound up in shareholder results. There were real
mhm,
kind
mhm,
of material issues with like overproduction of cartridges, that there was more software being manufactured than hardware. The software shakeout was different because that happened in the computing industry, and that's where John and Brenda were working, right?
mhm, mhm,
Um, and the computing industry actually thought it would be safe. They were like, oh, they were watching the video game, like the console industry, go up in smoke, and they were like, but we're fine because we're computers. And this is actually like, if you go back and read like Doug Carlston, the guy who founded Broderbund, his biography that comes out in 1985, kind of immediately after the crash.
mhm,
This was like the reigning idea at the time was like, I think that this is that the what's happening in this framing by John and Brenda is sort of a kind of, it's like a how we remember rather than a what actually happened, which is
mhm,
super common in dealing with like folks kind of remembering the things, the experiences they were a part of. The 1983 video game crash has become so monolithic in terms of the way that it structures our understanding of American video game history, that we don't even pay attention to the fact that there were actually like multiple crashes that happened for different reasons. What happened in the computing industry was that you had like a proliferation of all of these hybrid consoles. So all of these like devices that took both floppy disks and cartridges. You had computer companies trying to like make cartridge based game media. And so there would be a company would release, like Sierra would release like one game, but they had to make it in 8 different formats. And
mhm,
then none
mhm,
of those, it fucked up your economies of scale. It meant that you were paying a higher price point for all of these things. And then they
mhm,
just like, the PC market had been like vastly over predicted, right? And so there was the promise of user adoption at a rate that was actually incredibly unrealistic. And so there were all of these people kind of entering into the market at the market's origin point, that the market could not actually hold. The market for personal computing was just not big enough to absorb the level of production. And so what happened in the software shakeout was that it was not, first of all, game specific. It happened to the entire computing software industry. And so like whole magazines went down, like all sorts of computer software developers went down, a whole bunch of like, there's a kind of huge wipeout of these like hybrid microcomputers of the early 80s that all get kind of wiped out. And it's really a separate phenomena from what like Atari and Intellivision and all of them are sort of dealing with, right? That's a crash created by an early projection bubble. What we're in right now is like very different. This is about the the like precarity created by the lack of margin from
mhm,
a hyper concentrated market, right? It's like it's actually almost kind of the opposite, you know?
mhm,
And so it's less about crashy and more about there's no air, right, in the
mhm,
thing anymore, right? There's no like tolerance. Yeah,
mhm.
that was a long
No,
that
I like that perspective. Like it rhymes exactly with my version of it, which is, in simple terms, like what it used to be more of a demand side problem.
mm,
Back in the 80s, it was really about like consumers are like, this is lame. Like all, and it's sort of self-inflicted. Like when you say you had to make the same game 8 times to match like the formats for each of these hardware pieces, that's like early mobile games too. Before the smartphone, that's exactly what it looked like. You had to
Yeah,
like studios would go out of business because telcos had so much power that they couldn't do anything else. They're like, no, you have to make this game 400 times to work with every single one of our handset devices, which
except
is
except back then,
trash.
right? You also had to physically manufacture the software platform, right?
Yeah, no, it's like so it's just a trash model. And so, but that was ultimately that resulted in consumer alienation. People would go to the store saying, I don't know what to pick. It's all kind of the same. You guys suck. I'm out. And so games at the time were very much regarded as toys. And so it was a hula hoop or roller skates. Like it came and it went. And that was the thinking. I think now we have more a supply side problem. I think
Mm.
the industry just, you know, how do you say, got a little ahead over it. Like, what's the term in American? You say, like,
Out over
you
its skis.
out over its skis. That's right. So you're just like, a little too far. You're assuming things to happen that there just aren't, and you build infrastructure accordingly, and then there isn't. You mentioned Xbox earlier. It's like I think that they did a fairly good job, but everybody was so excited about cloud gaming. Yeah, nobody asked for this, but you're building it, right? And I'm sure there's a market for it, and it has a place in it. The same with VR. It's like, yeah, nobody wants this, but you're building it, and so like you spending 80 billion on Reality Labs as Meta, that's a you problem. You can't say, oh, people are so XYZ. People are just doing what they do. It's like you're building this, expecting them to love it out of the box. That's not a demand side problem.
Yeah,
That's a
everyone they're
that's a
all going for
supply
like
side problem.
world domination of play experience, and it's like if you
Hmm.
pay attention to this industry at all, what makes games games is the proliferation of play experience. It's its diversity, not its homogeneity,
Hmm.
right? You can't make one ring. It just doesn't work that way, right?
Hmm. I totally agree. And so everybody wants to be Nintendo, right? So nobody wants to release an album or a film that they've spent all this time producing and then to no response from anybody. Nobody cares. Like, and that's what, of course, is very frustrating for creatives. So my guess is that it feels crashier to Brenda and John. People like their that legacy is kind of fading too. Like I think they're fantastically interesting people. Does my 13-year-old know them? No, absolutely not. It's like me going around like the Rolling Stones. Like who gives a shit? Nobody. That's it.
I think their embodied sense that everyone has lost their job is correct, right? I think that's what they're pointing to. They're saying like there's nowhere to go, right?
Mm-hmm.
From the developer perspective, everyone's impacted. Those things are true in the 1980s demand side problem, and they're true in the 2020s supply side problem. But
Mm-hmm.
their points of like their explanations are really different, and like we're not in a crash. We're in this kind of like it's almost like a black hole contraction that's happening around the industry.
Black hole contraction. You have so many dramatic metaphors today. It's springtime, It's like it's a reset. It's like yeah. I think it's a. I mean, here's my sort of complaint about the whole thing. Like, I get it, right? It's like, of course, it's everything's on fire, and like the number, like the sort of layoff count that goes on everywhere. It's true. Like these are demonstrable, observable facts. Like yes, but it also at some point it comes back to that same observation where like the games industry always wants to pretend it's more like the film industry to value itself. It has sort of like a low self-esteem issue with that. It's like, oh, we have The Last of Us. Now we matter culture. It's like you've mattered this whole time. But only through expressing itself as a film or in these other forms of entertainment and cultural expression does it seem to feel like it's worth everybody's time. But the same thing happens now. It's like, okay, yes, it's true, but just because we're going through this moment, it's like the games industry isn't dead. It's just transitioning. And so it's yeah, just because not everybody's asking for your stuff right now doesn't mean that people stop playing. I think that they're just looking for new things to look, to play. And so a lot of the models that people have presented with them, like, yeah, we took. a huge bet with free to play. Yeah, that's now eating itself, right? We see this with Epic games, like Fortnite's declining, because what they call forever games are just not forever games. It just isn't a thing. Like they have life cycles too, and so it's up to us to like reinvent that. But to be naive about the circumstance and then to have like people that have a lot of clout basically add to the panic a little bit. It's like, yeah, I get it.
I don't know if that's what's. I mean,
That's where I'm at with
first of
it.
all, that clout I think is not as cloudy as you think, right? They have a lot of historical regard, but that does not necessarily open whatever door they want. Um, and
Well, I mean, come on, man.
I don't know that like John and Brenda are like adding to the crisis. Like the
No, no, no,
crisis
no.
can already done be here, you know?
No, but here's another way of phrasing the same thing. It's like, okay, so whatever. Give their credibility a 1 to 10 rating. You know, so tell us how you survived the first crash, so that we knew now as a new generation of creatives can learn from that. As opposed to, yeah, it's actually worse. It's like, okay, but what did you do last time? How did you fix it? How did you
Well,
get past it? How did you hire and fire?
they didn't do anything, right? None of the developers did, right? It was not
You see?
a problem that they could solve, right? What happened was that computer software development, a whole bunch of companies got knocked out, and the few that sustained pivoted to doing PC compatible, like basically making games for the early PC, for the Tandy, and they just like they struggled along in the market, building market share back very slowly for about the next 3 to 4 years, right? That
Right.
they all took a black hole, but the economic dynamics were totally separate. Like you can't, like this idea that somehow history is supposed to teach us solutions for dealing with late stage stupid capitalism is like actually not useful. And so when I what I like as a historian, I listen to I look at what Brenda says and I'm like this is about, this is someone testifying to a set of embodied experience, right? Like what they're saying is the thing that we are feeling is a feeling I have encountered before from 40 years ago, right? And it
Mm-hmm.
feels worse. That doesn't tell us anything true about the actual macro or microeconomic circumstances. That's not the point
Mm-hmm.
of personal historical testimony, right? And this is where I put my like oral historian cap on, right? What's more
Go on.
interesting is how she remembers rather than whether or not that remembering is kind of quote unquote factual. Like that's for me what is like, I don't think they're contributing or not contributing to anything. The reason this makes a headline is because it's John and Brenda Romero, and they are, they are not here to do a correct economic analysis of the situation. What they're giving us historically is a kind of experience of embodied historical change, right? And like I think that's what's like, I can sit here and say here's everything that was going on economically accurately at the time, right? This is why we can't make a one-to-one comparison, but I think really what you're just dealing with here is like this is what historical residue looks like in real time, right? This
Mm-hmm.
is the way like history imprints on bodies, and that's what's interesting to me about this statement, right? It allows us to have a comparative conversation, but like I don't think they're like responsible for anything, right? They're just speaking to their sense of like embedded historical experience, which is what we all do.
Yeah. No, I hear that, and I think you take a distinctly different lens to it, right? As an historian, like you put on your historian cap. I look at them more as like studio leaders and artists, and so while yours is, I think, is better formulated, I'm I'm always so hesitant to, like, while I want to acknowledge, of course, like the difficulty and the struggles around this, at the same time it's like, okay, but I'm this sort of relentless optimist about, let's go fix the problem. What's the next thing? And then I find it useful to be sober about things and let's make sure that we have the facts right. At the same time, it's like, like come on, let's inspire everybody else. Let's go. Let's reboot this thing. Like we've
I
only
mean,
ever known this struggle. So like what? Why is this?
I'm
Why do we have to
so I
sit
mean,
with
this
this so
is
much?
really a conversation for a different episode of the podcast, but I'm like, I'm so interested by like you have an acute understanding of the structural relation problem of capitalism, but then
Hmm.
why is the solution like individual activity?
Hmm.
I think the approach I take to it is that there is not a solution. We are not in control of the solution. There is no plucky person who's figuring this out, right? Like, or
Hmm.
way of inspiring us outside of this, right? Like, I think that like, not to not to like have the most cynical take, but like I think it's really important that we have a rational understanding that like these things are not actually in our hands, and that like that is like what provokes the call to like a class consciousness around this, like that there is no like better way of understanding it, that only if we intervened in this way that we could solve this problem. Like every nothing about the macro structure of capitalism like wants a better solution, right?
Hmm.
It wants
Hmm.
more extraction. And so we all kind of like make our peace with that, you know with that set of tensions in whatever ways are available to us.
Hmm.
But I don't know that we can like you know there's a solve at the level of the worker besides like riot and solidarity, like you
Hmm.
know I think that would kind of be my structuralist take on it.
Interesting. I think it's a necessary conversation to have currently. Absolutely. I think that's a critical part of the transition that the industry, whatever, like the the cultural form of play as we know it has to like must go through. This is that process that will then manifest later in different ways, right? How we build games, how we play games. That's all being redefined currently. I think an economic conversation is one, well, who's part of that? Who's investing or not investing? What do shareholders want out of this? Whose interest are we going after? I think there's a historic narrative as well. I think there's different voices in that conversation, that dialogue, and I do agree with you that like here's a structural problem. Why is the solution always expressed as an individual act, as the effort from a single person, right? But why is that always pulling yourself up by your bootstraps? Stop complaining, get to work. When collectively, you know, we experience this in a very real way. The the thing that I think I ultimately argue against is like this is such a precious part of the human experience that even in its
Mm.
most commercialized form, in whatever time period we live now, it's like, you know, I still think that there's an incredible propensity for good and inspiration and sort of all these sort of like fuzzy feelings around it. And I look for that, like, where is that? And it can't just be, corporations talking about some new game mechanic. Like, that is not the source of inspiration. I think the source of inspiration comes from how do we get past this moment? Like, how can we change the conversation? Is it, you know, I mean, to me, from an economic standpoint, like a large part of the situation we're in today is not so much technological only, for instance, it's also the fact that we de-risked the entire industry by focusing on a very narrow demographic for decades.
Mm.
That's a
Mm.
whole that rarely comes up, but that's like, yeah, you keep doing that. If
Yeah.
that was the film industry, it'd be worth 0 cents because nobody would watch any of that stuff except for one demographic. And so, in all these ways, I think it's just a bunch of different
And this is
strands
this is
that
what
create
Disney
this.
wants to recapitulate to, right? Like,
Mhm.
to go back to, wait, can we go back to young men? Can we get them back? Can we
Yeah,
get them off YouTube?
yeah. We
Like,
missed them. They were so good for us. It's like, yeah, and
yeah,
so
yeah.
so I think it's I wouldn't propose that it's an individual job to solve all this, or like even if you're like a celebrity designer, like it's like, yeah, what's up? I think that there's, you know, a broader role here, but it also suggests that the industry is ready for something new. I think the industry, like this expression, needs to evolve, and so I'm dying to see it. I'm looking for it every day,
Hmm.
and I'm just not finding it in conversations like this.
Yeah, that might be. I think. Yeah, I think as a historian, I look at that as evidence. I don't expect it to deliver like a solution per se, right?
Mhm.
Um, or that's what not what I need out of it. What the Yeah, you know, I think the solution involves several guillotines, but
Well, I mean, solution might be the biggest word here. I think it's like just one next thing to do. Like, like of course we want transition and then towards some kind of, I guess, loosely defined utopian goal or something in the future. But it's a like what do I do Monday at 9 a.m.? Like how do I get out of bed? Like what is it that gets me? And so
well, and the answer to that seems to be for a lot of people, it's not working in games, right? And
yeah.
and there's not a clear, or you know, maybe Epic has a new. It will be doing some hiring to make its Disney extraction shooter. Ah.
On a good note, what was
On a
your
good,
pons and owns here?
we don't have pawns and owns. We're supposed to do exit tickets, Yost. Did you come with any exit tickets?
I did not have an exit tickets. That's why I'm obfuscating the obvious.
Oh, that's why you're dodging, avoiding. Well, I didn't come prepared with any pawns and owns. We don't have to do one. What do you got? 2 weeks left in class? What's going on
I
in
got
class right now?
well, so I have everybody getting excited about their final. So I had all my midterm and all the other grading is now in, and so they kind of know where they're at, and so I'm buckling in for all the Q&A that's coming my way. We have that, so we have 2 more weeks, and then on the 30th, so really one more lecture, we have Reggie Fils-Aimé, former president of Nintendo,
That's right.
speaking at the fireside. So he and I are going to be talking at, so it's a Stern
It's a game
slash
center. It's a game
Game
center, right?
Center and Future Lab collaboration. Basically,
What
it's
time?
it runs from 6 to 8. The talk itself. I'll send out the itinerary. But so Reggie and I have spoken over the last couple of months. He's like, hey, you should come. He's like, yep, that sounds cool. I'm gonna quiz him on a few things. I'm curious if you have any questions that you would like me to throw in the hat there. But that's sort of like a highlight of the semester, and that's the payoff for writing, of course, amazing papers, which I look forward to. What about you?
They can't they
What?
can't get in unless they submit their paper. It's
That's right. It's like that's the requirement. What celebrity guest do you host this semester?
I do not. I am the celebrity guest. There is
Oh,
no celebrity guest. I am teaching history of media and communication. So we just did on Wednesday our it was a whole lecture about the computer mouse, going back
ooh,
to Doug Engelbart up through the Xerox Alto, the Microsoft, the Apple Macintosh, and Windows, what 2.0, and
that's
then
so cool.
Monday we do the bulletin board systems, so the prehistory of social media. Then we will
Mhm.
do I have a whole lecture on MS Paint and the GIF as a file
Oh Lord,
format. And so we
wow.
deal with like the 1990s kind of tech and Web 1.0 internet boom. And then the last class is Google search. And we use Tim Huang's subprime attention market. So I sometimes have a fantasy. I know Tim and I are friends. I sometimes have a fantasy of him. Like, can I just be like, and now Tim? And he would like run down the room and lecture on his own book on the last day. I think it'd be funny. But
That'd be so
uh,
fun.
I never have the energy at the end of class to make that
I
happen.
would totally take this class, Lane. Uh, you know, can I audit it somehow? Is that a thing?
I mean, you have an NYU ID. You can get into the building.
Oh,
You know?
that's right.
Yeah.
Who brought his dad? Whose dad is in the back? And it would be me.
It was rough. Wednesday was rough. They had a test on Monday, and on Wednesday, maybe 50 of them showed up out of a class of like 240. It was like, ooh, guys, this too will be on a test, so you might want to be in class. But, you know, Whatever. I'm no celebrity. I'm no former president of Nintendo. So.
I mean, you're even better than that to me, Lane. All right.
All right. Well, that's all we got. We'll see you next week. And until then, good night and good game. Unboxing, Play and Profit for the Gaming Curious is an independent production by Joost van Dreunen and Lane Nooney. Our producer is Keaton Ireland. Our logo was designed by Moira Zhang. For more from Unboxing, subscribe to our newsletter at buttondown.com/unboxingpodcast. Unboxing episodes can be found on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and wherever else you get your content.